Hi guys, welcome to your next message from Mull, and this one revolves around the same topic that we've been covering for a few talks now about living and dealing with long-term pain. And today's message is called Learning How to Be in Pain, which is certainly something that most of us don't want to learn. Come inside because it's Baltic and a bit blowy. I've even lit the fire today, so I must be going a bit soft in my old age. Don't tell anybody. And today we're going to look at how pain pathways become quite rapidly embedded in the human body. And the way we're going to do this is thinking about the way that we normally process skills, how we learn certain skills, which is predominantly done through repetition. So the more times we repeat a certain movement pattern, for example, the more efficient we become at it. So let's think about, say, a gymnast. We could talk about any top performer in their field, but if we look at a gymnast, for example, so to become say an Olympic level gymnast, like our guys that have just been out to Tokyo this year, that requires thousands of hours of consistent, specific, and rigorous practice, performing those routines time after time after time. And eventually you start to perfect those routines. And we develop something that's often referred to as muscle memory, which is probably something you've heard about. Now, the muscles don't actually learn anything themselves. That's all done up here. But what tends to happen is we reinforce the neurological pathways between the brain and the muscle tissue that's performing the specific movements. And if there's a decrease in practice and in practice time, then we tend to see a decrease in performance. So when a gymnast, for example, is injured or has to spend time away from the practice session, say they had COVID or something like that, then their sort of that elite level performance will drop off a little bit. And you may have seen this as well in, say, if you have a hobby that involves a certain skill level and you haven't done it for a little while and you go back to it and things aren't quite tickety-boo. So that's in general how we tend to learn. A lot of people think that top performers in their field are born, and certainly genes will play a role. So if you're handed down specific attributes from mum and dad that make you better at certain sports, for example, then yes, that is possible. But in general, perfection comes with thousands and thousands of hours of repetition. And what's happening is that the neurological pathways are becoming more embedded, and actually there's a covering on the nerve fibers that travel from brain to the muscle tissues. And that coating's a bit like electrical wire. It's called myelin. And the more times you perform a certain activity, this electric sort of insulation on the nerve fibers becomes thicker. And the thicker that fiber is, the faster the nerve impulses travel. So we become more efficient at carrying out certain movement patterns, for example. Now, you might be thinking, how does this refer to pain, Rob? Well, unfortunately, chronic pain sort of follows the same profile. So pain impulses that are coming, let's say from your back, for example, somebody has lower back pain, those pain impulses coming from the source of the pain up to the brain, they are constant and they are specific and they are rapid. They're a bit like the way the gymnast works. And this pain gets worse as the body almost becomes more skilled at processing the pain. How awful is that? So those with long-term pain, it tends to get worse over time because the body is more efficient at processing it. And the double whammy here really is that whereas a gymnast would take many, many years and thousands of hours of repetition and practice to get to that world-class level, within a couple of months of consistent pain, you become world-class at processing it, because the pain impulses are coming so quickly, so rapidly. It's like they're being fired out of a machine gun, and the body starts to learn how to process that pain very, very quickly. And this can obviously leave people quite demoralized, because if you're in long-term chronic pain and it's there every day, then you start to have a lot of negative thoughts. And as we've talked about recently in the talks, those negative thoughts, those negative emotions release stress chemicals into our body. That makes the process even worse. That makes your perception of the pain even worse. So it's a bit of a vicious circle downwards here. So, and thinking about waiting times these days for operations, for scans, for diagnostic work on pain sources, then you can see there's a real issue here going forward. So we're going to have to get better at dealing with it. And next week we're going to start just by looking at the ways that we often try to deal with the situation. Some of the most common ways to deal with long-term chronic pain are not the most effective in the long run. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then eventually we are going to move on to some strategies on how to deal with the issue itself, and hopefully a little bit more effectively. So hope you guys have a good day, wrap up warm, and I'll catch up with you next week. Cheers, bye-bye. Don't tell anyone about the fire.